If you want to get better at TFT, you have to improve many parts of your gameplay, so I thought it'd be a great idea to give you tips to improve in every single category. These tips are anything from a simple trick to maybe a feature you did not know about, and I also cover some advanced tips so that there's something here for everybody, regardless of your rank. Jarvan boosts attack speed of units within 2 hexes. His ability is incredibly useful to increase the DPS of both AD and AP carries. Make sure to position your carries in range of Jarvan's spell. Here Sivir is getting her attack speed boosted on both the right and left side, but if you mirror to the backline, she is out of range and will not get that attack speed buff. Jarvan is not the only champion with an impactful spell. There are many others like Galio, Orianna, MF, and Alistar to name a few. And to make sure those spells go off quicker, make sure to utilize Silco's Mastermind trait to make them cast even faster. Here Silco will give Jarvan plus 40 mana, making him instantly cast as he will be at 100 at 100 mana. Additionally, Sivir will be 40 out of 60 mana, making her only need 2 autos until she casts her powerful spell. Here Silco is increasing your DPS by a giant amount just within the first couple of seconds. Edge of Night is replacing GA in set 6.5. It has a similar function as GA, but works a little differently. When you drop below 50% HP, you drop aggro and remove all the bad effects like slows and grievous wounds. The champion also gets bonus attack speed. It works very much like the smoke bomb augment for assassins. You should always scout before picking augments. If you'd want to take Challenger Heart and play challengers from there, you should always check if anybody else has taken any challenger augments, as you don't want to be contested right off the bat. There are new odds for all augments, and they are all summarized in this table. This website is also interactive, so if your first augment was gold, it recalculates the odds and it will show you the only possible outcomes left. This is useful so you have an idea which augments can bail you out further to boost up your team. And the link to this website and other useful links are over on my Discord server as well. Yordles are a fun comp to play and can also be incredibly powerful. But if you're just running 3 Yordles, you could also think about it as running an economy trait. You get around 1.4 gold per turn with Yordles if you sell the unit every single time from the portal, so it can boost up your economy by a lot in the early stages. You should always come into every TFT game with a plan. Although it's nice to play flexible with your options, you should always be defaulting towards a comp from the very start. Defaulting means that you will be forcing that comp until the game gives you units or items for another comp. TFT has a lot of general rules that you generally should follow. There are cases when these need to be broken, but that will require a deeper understanding of the game. Therefore, always follow general rules until you get to around diamond ranks. And once you get there, try breaking the rules every now and then to understand how they work and why they're general rules in the first place. Vi was created to be just like Riven from set 4.0. Her itemization is pretty much identical. Stack her with AP items and she can be a really strong carry, or stack her with tank items to be a solid tank. Be careful when playing against Zeri. Her DPS output is huge when she casts her spell. Since she targets the farthest away unit, you want to avoid having your carry in the corner. Instead, put them in the middle or on the same side as Zeri. Augments such as Chemtech and Challenger Unity buff up your entire team with those traits. This also makes them work with other augments, such as Chemtech Explosion will make non-Chemtech units explode on death if you already have Chemtech Unity in. The augment also buffs other creatures such as Zeri with the Chemtech buff. There are over 80 new augments in set 6.5, and some of them are stronger or weaker to pick based on which stage you are at. And with today's sponsor, the Meta TFT app, it will let you know all of this information. You can see which augments perform the best, making it easier for you to pick the best ones, and you can sort by silver, gold, and prismatic, while also seeing the change in power if it's the first, second, or third augment. The match history in the app is also incredibly useful to understand where you went wrong in any given game. You can see how your leveling and economy management is different compared to other players, which lets you know if you're playing too aggressive or too passive with that comp. The comps page is also useful as you get a raw and unbiased view of what the best comps are. Additionally, you can check out what your early game, level 8 and level 9 comps should be, and some variations of all of them as well. The scouting feature lets you see what comps people will likely be playing in the lobby. It also lets you know if there are any one-tricks so you know which comps to avoid, and which comps will likely be uncontested. These are just some of the features the app has to offer, and if you want to download this yourself, click my referral link in the description or in the pinned comment. Sometimes if you pick a trait-specific augment, you might actually want to pivot away from that trait later on. Augments are very important in TFT, and being down one augment is not a great spot to be in, but sometimes when you are really far ahead on another comp, if you get a bunch of units and items for that comp, it is worth it, even though it feels terrible. Stattik Shiv is amazing in comps that deal AP damage. Since it shreds 50% of the enemy MR, it will increase your DPS by a lot. Put this on secondary carries or support units with high attack speed to make them proc it even faster. TFT is a game mostly about knowledge, and if you want to climb to as high a rank as possible, you can't just play a ton of games and expect to get better. Instead, you should also spend a decent amount of time seeking out information. You can obtain this by watching more of my other videos, reading through the competitive subreddit, or watching Twitch streamers to see how other high-ranked players play the game. Resistance shredding is really important for most comps, and there are a ton of different ways of shredding both armor and MR. If you have multiple sources shredding armor, for example Last Whisper and Jace in melee form, it will only use the highest shred, and it will not stack. But there are also augments like Weak Spot that ignore armor, and Draven's VIP ability also lets him ignore armor. In that case, it will shred the armor, then ignore the rest of it. Therefore, Last Whisper plus Weak Spot and Draven VIP work great together, but if you add in a Jace, Draven will not deal any more damage, as Last Whisper shreds more than Jace. The Ludens Echo augment works just like the Ludens Echo item from previous sets. The lower mana the champion has, the more value it gets from it. This augment is really good if you're running carries like Corki, Ahri, Brand, or Ezreal, to name a few. Treasure Trove is an augment that is strongest on stage 1-4. This is because everyone has less gold here, and the less gold everyone else has, the better it is for you to have more gold, as you get farther ahead on the economy curve compared to everybody else. Be careful placing components when taking Thieving Rascals. Since the component is random, it might combine into a useless item on your champion, and being stuck with a useless item on your main carry is not a good spot to be in. Zephyr and Shroud are two of the best items in the game. Since they are incredibly versatile and work in every single comp, you almost always want to have at least one of these in your end game comp. However, the most important thing is to have 3 items on your main carry, so don't slam these right away, but you should instead be looking to make these on stage 4 and onwards. A general rule in TFT is to make an item if you have 4 or more components. This is because we don't want to be leaving a bunch of power on our bench. Even though you might be able to make perfect items if you don't make items throughout the game, you will be losing out on a ton of board strengths throughout the entire early and mid game if you just let the components sit on your bench. When thinking about which items you want to build, look at your components and then think about, what item do I want these components to turn into? For example, if I don't want to make Jeweled Gauntlet here, what other items do I want the glove and rod to turn into? And if I don't want to slam Warmogs here, what item do I want these 2 belts to turn into that is not Warmogs? If you can't find a good answer to these questions, you should just slam Jeweled Gauntlet and Warmogs as you don't have any other good options. When it comes to the very late game, make sure to feed Tham Kench higher cost units for more stats. Since the game will be over soon, you want to have the strongest board possible to not get knocked out. Banchees Claw is a good counter to Blitzcrank hooks and other farthest away CC spells, but if you play 2 Blitzcranks on your board, one will pop the Banchees Claw, and the other will hook in the carry. The Disintegrator augment is very good whenever Giant Slayer is good. Since it deals percentage of the enemy's HP, it will get more value in lobbies when the units have higher HP. In addition, since it only works on attacks, this augment is a lot better in comps where multiple units have high attack speed, as they will proc this augment more often, increasing your DPS by a ton. Archangel's Embrace is kinda like an inverse to the Ludens Echo augment. The higher your mana pool is, the more AP you will get. This augment is insanely good on units that start with some mana, such as Orianna and Seraphine. Jeweled Lotus is insanely good on AP carries that want crit damage, such as Ahri. Usually you will go blue buff IE and JG on Ahri, but with this augment you can replace the JG for another damage item like Deathcap. This lets you practically have 4 items on Ahri, making her insanely strong. A crucial skill to have in TFT is to be able to plan ahead. For example, if you're running this level 3 board, what does your level 4 and 5 want to look like? If you're able to answer this question, it's a lot easier to know which units you need to hold on to, and therefore making it super easy to know if you should sell your units to make interest or not. When thinking about what your level 4 and 5 want to look like, you want to look at your synergies. A good level 4 board here would be to add in a 2-star unit or to replace Darius for 4 scrap. From there, a great level 5 would be 3 innovators, 2 bodyguards, or even dropping down to 2 scrap to add in 3 Yordles for extra econ. This is just one example, and every single early game board has different directions you can take it in, so always plan ahead and think about your options. In TFT we have grey, blue, and golden orbs. They all contain different loot, and knowing what you can expect from them and how likely each option is will let you plan ahead better and more realistically as well. In previous sets, Sivir was a support unit that would buff up the attack speed of nearby allies, but in this set she only buffs up her own attack speed. Getting her to cast is huge for giving her more DPS. In other words, she works just like Urgot from set 6.0. Ahri's positioning is exactly like her positioning from set 3. You want her orb to shoot diagonally to hit more targets. Since Ahri scales up the more times she casts, you want to deal as much damage at the start of the fight as possible to not fall too far behind. If you want to read a full positioning guide on Ahri, I'll link one in the description. There are two main ways of playing TFT. One is to climb, and the other is playing to learn. When playing to climb, you're only playing comps you're comfortable with and already understand. When playing to learn, you're testing out other comps and playstyles. In the long run, you will improve more if you play to learn, but you will gain more LP in the short term if you play to climb. Leveling and econ patterns are crucial to understand in TFT, but generally, until you get to Diamond, you should just follow a cookie cutter leveling pattern. And that is level 4 on 2-1, level 5 on 2-5, level 6 on 3-2, level 7 on 4-1, and then level 8 on 5-1. There are obviously cases where you don't follow this, but most of the time, players below Diamond won't be able to correctly point out those cases. Nocturne has a powerful CC ability. Much like Viego from set 5, he can lock down targets, not letting them play the game, so if you are running Nocturne, make sure to have him jump on the enemy carry. Unless you're running Renata as your main carry, she's actually a frontline unit. This is because her spell slows down the attack speed of enemy champions, and we want to make sure this spell goes off as fast as possible, and also to hit as many champions as possible. Therefore, we put her in the frontline so she can generate mana she will be taking from splash damage. When trying to climb, you should always be playing comps and champions that you perform well with. Here I can see that I perform best with Ahri carry, so I should play more of that. And I can see that I perform the worst with innovators, so I should play less of that. But I also want to know that it's very early in the set, so that's why the sample size is very small in this example. One of the harder things to understand in TFT is whether you should be greedy or not in any given situation. The most clear example of this is on stage 4-1 at level 7. Here you will have to roll a lot of the time to stabilize your board, but a lot of the time you are strong enough to do a fast 8 here as well. There is a ton of nuance that goes into this decision making, but when in doubt, you should always roll to upgrade your board. There are two very popular playstyles in TFT. Playing for a safe top 4 or play for a risky 1st or 8th strategy. Which playstyle you go for depends entirely on the comp you're playing. More expensive comps like Sniper Jhin will be more of a 1st or 8th comp, as you get a ton of power into your team once you hit the 2 stars, and your entire board is overall a lot more expensive than other comps. A top 4 comp is a lot cheaper and overall more reliable, like for example the Hextech Sivir comp. Since you have less total power once you 2-star everything, since it's a lot cheaper, you will get outscaled by more expensive comps and therefore win a lot less often, but top 4 way more often. Always try to round out your team in terms of offensive, defensive, and utility. If you have a team that only has one carry and the rest of the units are tanks, then you need to have a ton of damage items in your team so that you can actually deal damage. On the other hand, if you have few frontline champions, you need to make sure you have defensive items on them so they don't die right away. The final tip is to subscribe to the channel. I post multiple guides like this every single week going in-depth on comps, the meta, or other concepts. And while you're down there, hit that like button to help the channel grow. And once again, thank you to MetaTFT for sponsoring the video, and please use my referral link if you want to support me and the channel. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.